A murderous psychopath is the terror of a shapely young woman whom he attacks and skins. The task of a young aspiring FBI agent, Clarice Starling, is to catch this madman, but she can only do so with the help of another cannibal psychopath. Hey guys, this is Afraid, and you are watching The Silence of the Lambs. Let's get into it. An insane and sadistic serial killer named Jamie Gumb, also known as Buffalo Bill, has appeared in the town. Buffalo Bill kills and skins young girls. Jamie Gumb is known for skinning his victims and making women's suits from their skin, hence the name Buffalo Bill. Jack Crawford, an FBI executive, decides to give an aspiring FBI agent, Clarice Starling, a chance and assigns her this task. Starling is very excited. This will be a chance to prove her skills and in the future work in the FBI. To catch the psychopathic Buffalo Bill, Jack is missing a piece, the collaboration of Hannibal Lecter, a former psychiatrist and criminologist who has been held for over 8 years in the Baltimore Criminal Asylum, accused of murdering some of his patients and devouring their bodies. In fact, it is believed that Lecter may know many things about the murderer, but since Dr. Lecter refuses any cooperation, Crawford decides to assign the promising recruit, Clarice Starling, the task of solving the case, hoping that the young woman will be able to persuade the insane psychiatrist. Clarice schedules a meeting with Lecter and is warned by both Crawford and Chilton, the director of the asylum, it is important not to reveal anything about yourself or to show too much availability to Lecter. As they made their way to Lecter's cell, Chilton tells her that in 1981, June 8th, Lecter complained of an ache in his chest, and when he was brought into the pantry, Lecter attacked a nurse and deformed her jaw, after which he pulled out one of her eyes and ate her tongue. All this with a normal pulse of 85 beats per minute. The cannibal meets Clarice standing up and immediately shows that he has sensational mental abilities, far superior to regular ones. Also, Lecter is very good at drawing. In general, he comes across as a very calm and civilized person. Lecter understood Clarice's intention to be courteous to him, just to get more information about the case. And Clarice discovers that sincerity is the key to discussing with Lecter, to convince him to open up as well. At the end of the meeting, when Clarice was about to leave, she was called back by Lecter, who told her to seek out Miss Moffat, an old patient of his. Days later, a patient at the asylum named Miggs had died. Lecter whispered to him throughout the afternoon, after which Miggs began to cry. The staff found him with his own tongue swallowed. Lecter did this because Miggs was very rude to Clarice, and Lecter hates impolite people. One evening, Clarice received a phone call from her boss, Crawford. He asked her about Moffat, the patient Lecter told her about, and Clarice told him that Lecter destroyed all traces of his patients. In her last dialogue with Lecter, he told her to look deeply into herself. So, she thought that yourself might be a place. In fact, there is a yourself storage facility in Baltimore, so she headed to that place. In the words of one local gentleman, no one has entered this storage facility since 1980. Inside this place, she found a very old car. Clarice entered the car and found a recipient with a man's head in makeup. That same night, she went to the asylum to speak with the cannibal Lecter to tell him about what she saw. Lecter revealed to her that Moffat's real name was Benjamin Raspail. He was a former patient of his. Clarice asked him about his makeup and his dress. Was he perhaps a transvestite? Lecter said that actually no, he was just a manic depressive. At the end of the talk, Lecter stated that he would help Clarice to find the killer Buffalo Bill, but she has to reveal her past. It's the middle of the night. A curly-haired girl gets out of her car to go into the house, but a certain guy is stalking her with night vision goggles. As she is about to enter the house, she sees a guy trying to put a couch in the truck. She decides to help him, and the guy gets her into the van to push the couch and ask her if she is a size 14. After that, he started hitting her until she was unconscious. It was the killer Buffalo Bill. Before he drove off, the psycho cut off her clothes with a scissor. While practicing with the others, Clarice is informed of a missing girl, the girl Buffalo Bill kidnapped on that night. In the helicopter, we learn that Buffalo Bill keeps the girls he is kidnapping alive for 3 days. 3 days, Buffalo Bill does not rape them, but at the end of the 3 days, he shoots them, skins them, and dumps them in different rivers. Jack Crawford is notified that the body of a victim of the serial killer Buffalo Bill has been found in a river, so he and Clarice drive out to investigate the body. With Lecter's help, Clarice forms a psychological profile of Buffalo Bill, a white serial killer who only kills people of his skin color. He lives in a house, not an apartment. He is 30 to 40 years old and has high physical strength. In Clarice's words, Buffalo Bill will not stop until he is caught. Once they arrive at the place where the girl's body was, the agents rub Vicks under their nostrils to stifle the smell of a decomposing body. After analyzing the body, Clarice tells Jack that the girl is from town, according to her glitter nail polish and ear pierced 3 times. Also, Clarice observed the girl's nails, 2 of which were broken. She had dirt under her nails, which meant she had tried to escape. When they opened the girl's mouth to photograph her teeth, Clarice noticed that there was something inside her throat. With the help of tweezers, the photographer pulled an insect cocoon out of the girl's throat. That bug wouldn't have been able to get in there by itself. Someone had put it there. The terrifying part came when they turned the girl over on her stomach. The killer skinned 2 large, diamond-shaped sections above the buttocks. Remember the bug found in the girl's throat? Actually, that type of insect can only be found in Asia, so someone had eggs and grew them. In the next scene, we find ourselves in a laboratory filled with insects of various types and sizes. Leaving the lab, we see a room with women's clothes and a naked man sitting on a chair. In the next room was a pit from which you can hear a girl's voice calling for help. News channels announced the disappearance of Catherine Martin, the girl kidnapped by Buffalo Bill. She was the daughter of a senator. The next day, Clarice went straight to the asylum where Lecter was. Clarice let him know that if he would cooperate in Buffalo Bill's capture, the senator would secure a place for him in another clinic. A clinic where he would have access to books and a week-long vacation on a beach, not to mention 3 hot meals a day. None of this will happen if Lecter refuses to cooperate and the senator's daughter dies. But all this didn't seem to interest Lecter. He wanted to know more about Clarice's past. He wanted her to become his patient. Clarice, in exchange for his help, submits to his analysis sessions and tells him that she was disturbed during her childhood. When she was still a child, she had lost her mother, and after a few years, her father, who was a policeman. Although a cannibalistic, insane, and ruthless serial killer, Lecter develops a deep and sincere sympathy, almost paternal, for Clarice. Lecter asked her if by any chance the girl killed by Buffalo Bill was curvy, as if he knew something. In addition, Clarice tells Lecter that the killer inserts insects into the bodies of his victims. Lecter reveals to her that the insect Bill inserted would become a butterfly, signifying a transformation. So it's a cross-reference to Bill's transsexualism, which is why there were many women's clothes inside his house. The moment Clarice tried to ask more questions, Lecter turned his head and asked her what happened after that her parents died. Lecter turns his head to not look her in the eye and embarrass her. This makes it much easier for her to tell. After telling him that she stayed living with some of her mother's acquaintances for 2 months, she stopped and asked for more information about Bill. It had become an exchange, information for information. Lecter turned around and revealed that Bill is not a real transsexual, but wants to be one. Lecter states that Bill is not an innate killer, but through the faults of childhood traumas, he became what he became. In the next scene, we see the psychopathic Buffalo Bill speaking in the third person. While he is holding his little dog in his arms, he is telling the girl in the pit to put on a lotion he had given her. She was Catherine Martin, the senator's daughter. As he lifted the basket back up, Catherine saw bloodstains on the walls of the pit, as if someone had tried to escape, at which point she started screaming. Bill, because of how psycho he was, began to mock her and scream too. To get more information about Bill, the senator set up a meeting with the cannibal Lecter. The deal is simple. For more information about Bill, Lecter will receive a place in a new clinic where he can listen to music, read books, paint, and more. Lecter said Bill's real name is Louis Fent. He was brought to Lecter by one of his patients because he was worried about Louis. When Lecter met with Senator Ruth Martin in his mask and restraints, he taunted her, asking if the senator had breastfed her daughter. After she was about to leave, he began to tell her the truth about Bill, which was that he was blonde, blue-eyed, about 6 feet tall, and 180 pounds. Also told her that he was in his mid-30s and lived in Philadelphia. Clarice made another visit to the new clinic where Lecter was. Lecter told her that she already has all she needed to find Bill. Lecter's turn to ask the questions has arrived, so he asked her why she ran away from home. Clarice told him about a disturbing episode from her childhood, the heartbreaking scene of the lambs destined for slaughter, bleeding in despair. Clarice also told him that she had tried to free the lambs, but they wouldn't move, so she took one in her arms and ran away. She was found and brought home by a sheriff, after which Clarice was sent to the orphanage and the lamb was killed. Clarice had revealed to him that she has nightmares at night and wakes up hearing lambs screaming. So, Lecter thinks that by saving Catherine, Clarice will stop hearing these lambs screaming. When Clarice is about to be taken away, Lecter gives her Bill's psychological profile and tells her to analyze it. Dr. Hannibal Lecter is brought dinner. Before the officers enter the cell, Lecter pulls a metal pin out of his mouth and hides it in his left hand. Once the cuffs were put on, as the officers entered the cell, Lecter was opening the handcuffs. When the first agent ducked, Lecter bound his hands with the handcuffs and pushed the cell door open with his foot to knock the second agent down. After that, he began biting his face like a dog. With blood on his mouth, he grabbed the pepper spray and began applying it to the officer's face. After that, with a baton, he began to beat the second officer to death. After hearing gunshots, the cops headed to the room where Lecter was locked up. They were breathless at the terrifying scene. One officer had been crucified by Lecter and had his stomach cut open. The second police officer was on the floor with his face in blood. As the cops rode the elevator down, they noticed a blood stain on the ceiling, so they assumed Lecter was on top of them. They opened the small door in the ceiling, and dead Lecter peeked out from above. The policeman who was on the floor was taken to the hospital, but at some point, he got up from the crib and pulled his face away like a mask. It was Dr. Hannibal Lecter. He had cut the face of a policeman and used it as a mask and had exchanged clothes. In the next scene, we see something weird. Buffalo Bill was sewing the skin of one of his victims. Clarice decides to visit the home of Bill's first victim. Inside the girl's room, Clarice found pictures of her in her underwear. In the girl's closet, she found a dress with the same diamond sections that Bill did on his victims. Clarice realized that the two knew each other and also realized that the psychopathic Bill would shape their skin into a woman's dress for him to wear. In the meantime, Clarice received a call from Jack Crawford, who told her that they had found Bill's location and would be capturing him shortly. We return to Catherine's pit. She uses a piece of bone to knock Bill's dog into the pit. In the meantime, Buffalo Bill is making up. The dog bites the bone, but Catherine couldn't catch the dog with the bucket, while Bill couldn't hear anything because of the music. While Catherine was desperate, Bill turned on the camera and started dancing. To show you how out of his mind he was, he stuck his penis behind his legs to simulate a vagina. Despite Jack telling Clarice that they had found Bill, she decides to go talk to a former co-worker of the first victim. The girl said that she didn't know her boyfriend, aka Bill, but together with her, she was helping a certain Miss Lipman because she was old. So Clarice decides to go talk to Miss Lipman. In the meantime, Crawford and his team arrived at the house, but found no one inside. Bill did not live there. Meanwhile, Bill finds the dog in the pit along with Catherine. The girl threatened him that she would hurt the dog if he did not release her. He took the gun, and suddenly someone rang the bell. It was Clarice. It is not clear from Clarice's reaction whether she recognized Bill right away, but she asked him to talk. When she saw the butterfly in the house, along with all the sewing tools, she realized that it was indeed him. A few feet away, Buffalo Bill. She immediately pointed her gun at him, but Bill didn't seem frightened and fled quietly. She followed him to the basement, where the pit was also located. After that, she entered the laboratory with the insects, and inside a room, she found a tub with Mrs. Lipman's body, a decomposing body. Suddenly, the light went out. Bill had his night vision goggles on, but Clarice could see nothing. Clarice was breathing fast as she was looking for something to hold on to. Bill was inches away from Clarice and was about to touch her. Bill loaded the gun, but Clarice heard the sound and quickly turned to fire. At the end of it all, Lecter, who had traded his cooperation for a regime of greater freedom, managed to escape, losing his trail altogether, while Clarice was promoted to a special agent of the FBI. During the reception for the promotion, Clarice reveals a phone call from Lecter from the Bahamas, who asked her if the lambs had finally stopped screaming. That is, if the traumas and ghosts of the past have stopped tormenting her. Sure that he cannot be traced, Hannibal confides to her that he is about to have an old friend for dinner, while his gaze rests on a jet from which Dr. Chilton is getting off. The latter, rightly feeling in danger during Lecter's absconding, was looking for a secret location to hide in, finally ending up in the same place where Lecter is already. Lecter blends in with the crowd and discreetly walks behind Chilton and his escort. So to really understand what happened here, let me explain. Lecter was not one to cooperate easily. However, he only slowly releases the information to Clarice in exchange for personal details about her, and the clues are often in the form of puzzles or as twisted jokes. What about Buffalo Bill's mental illness? Both the novel and the movie describe Gumb as confused and self-hating with signs of gender dysphoria, though multiple characters state that Gumb is not transgender. Personality: sociopathic but tortured. Deceptive and homicidal, Jamie may not have a sense of remorse, but his fondness for precious and occasional displays of emotion shows that he is not a pure sociopath. How did Clarice manage to find Buffalo Bill? Clarice was running out of ideas and knows Lecter knows who he is. He refers to Marcus Aurelius of the desire for what we see every day. She realizes, upon reviewing the case file, that one of the victims later discovered had actually been the first because the body had been well hidden. She returns to the small town, searches the girl's bedroom, and finds hidden Polaroids of the girl in her underwear, then finds the clothes the girl was sewing and immediately recognizes the piece of the dress pattern of the same shape as the wounds on the victims. The diamond-shaped strips are missing from her back. Clarice goes to the local sewing store, where a friend of the girl says they were both dealing with an old seamstress, and gives Clarice her card and address. My overall rating for this movie, on a scale of 1 to 10, would be 10. How much would you rate this movie? Let me know down in the comments, and tell me which movie you would like to see next. If you enjoyed this video, press that like button, and subscribe to not miss horror movies like this one. And as always,
stay afraid.